Welcome back, everyone. This is part of Professor Charu's lectures on the concept of the theory of supply. In particular, we've already learned about the concept of the supply curve, and we've got a sense of the theory of the slope of the supply curve, in particularly that the supply curve slopes upward. We've also learned about the difference between changes in quantity supplied, movement along the curve, versus changes in supply due to other conditions, shifts of the curve. And we learned about the concept of the elasticity of supply, the price responsiveness of supply, of the quantity supplied to changes in prices. The final piece that we're going to add to this picture is the concept of producer's surplus. Now, producer's surplus is the parallel concept to the one we learned when we did theory of demand, which was consumer's surplus. So as before, in order to understand this concept, we're going to start at a price level. Let's take this price level 3. So at a price level of 3, we know that suppliers are willing to supply 8 units, 8 gallons of milk. Let's take a look at this. Firm H was willing to supply 2 gallons of milk at a price of $3. But Firm 8 would have been willing to supply that first of its 2 gallons at a price of 1. They didn't need $3 to supply 2 gallons of milk. They would have supplied 1 gallon of milk at a price of 1. And so that means that for the second gallon of milk, sure, they needed $3. But for that first gallon of milk, they would have accepted $1. So they got $3. They would have accepted $1. That means they've got a producer's surplus of $1, of $2, 1 to 3, $2. Let's take a look at Firm I. At $3, they are willing to supply 2 units. But they would have supplied these same 2 units at a price of $2. That means for each unit, the first unit they supplied, they would have accepted $2. They got 3. For the second unit they supplied, they would have accepted $2. They got 3. So they are getting $1, $2 right there, right? So and we can keep working our way down each firm. So for example, Firm J supplied 2 units, but they would have supplied 1 unit at price of 2, so they didn't need $3, so they got $1 there, and so on. So similarly, we can come up with the concept of a producer's surplus as the difference between how much would you have been willing to accept versus how much you got. Right? I'm going to show it graphically, and then I'm going to add a caveat. But let's just show this graphically first. The key is, since I'm working with producer's surplus, as before, I can't come up with the concept of the surplus without a price level at which I'm working. Here is my price level of $3. Right. For the first unit, I would have accepted $1. I got $3. For the second unit, I would have accepted $2. For the third unit, similarly, I would have accepted $2. I got $3. So that difference there, and so on. So if I keep doing this, if I add all that up, that area is a geometric representation of producer's surplus. So think about this now, in that geometrically, it is the area above the supply curve up to the price line, right? So it's not, so it's really important to realize what it looks like geometrically. But here is the final thing. This concept is going to be useful for us when we measure things like gains from trade, losses from trade, costs of externalities, and so on. But this is not, and this is very important, this is not the same thing as profit. in order to figure out a firm's profit, in addition to understanding the surplus, I need to know something about the firm's costs, right? And I don't have that here as yet. So this is why, while this is important, do not confuse the producer's surplus with the producer's profit. Because the producer's surplus is what would you accept versus what you got. And that's really not exactly the same thing as what's your profit, which depends not just on what you got, but also what your cost structure is. So we're going to do a lot more about profits in the theory of the firm. This is useful. Do not confuse it with profit. But we are going to use this repeatedly as a quick geometric visual representation of gains for producers in terms of what would they have accepted, what would they be okay with, versus what did they get. Right? So that is producer's surplus. Thank you.